The woman appeared with a map under her arm and a practiced smile. She said that the area was abandoned and that the HOA decided to incorporate it into the decorative agricultural expansion plan. Nobody understood a thing. My mother's property is 2,100 acres. It's not an exaggeration or an inflated story. It's 2,100 real acres, registered, legalized, with a deed in her name, for longer than this woman has been using sunscreen. It's on the outskirts of town, far enough away from the noise, but close enough for greedy people to want to poke around. It's mixed farmland, which our family maintains with the sweat of real workers. It's a space that carries history, a tree named after people, a shed with the mark of childhood, and a fence with the smell of wet earth. Then, in the middle of an ordinary day, my mother calls me to say that there are people walking around the farm. A group with polo shirts, clipboards, and drones. Yes, drones. And nobody she knew. She thought it was an inspection, maybe something from Ibama or the city hall. But then she saw a blonde woman, wearing a hat and heels, pointing at everything like someone picking out a rug in a decoration store. I asked her to record it discreetly with her cell phone. It didn't take 2 minutes, and the woman was already explaining the new delimitation of collective use of the area. She said that the whole thing was going to be integrated into the visual project of the community next door, a newly created condominium with the look of a real estate agent's advertisement. She spoke as if she were commenting on the weather, as if taking possession of an entire farm was just another stage in her schedule. My blood began to boil, but I breathed. I asked my mother not to do anything, not to confront her. I called the notary's office and pulled up the records. They were intact, all in my mother's name. But in the town hall's land system, surprise, there was a request for a review of territorial domain made by the HOA of the new condominium, signed by the very woman who was walking with heels in the cornfield. The woman filed a repossession suit based on abandonment. Yes, she claimed that the farm was without proven agricultural use, and that, therefore, the community had the right to reuse the area for its social function, as if my mother's farm was an abandoned park bench. But what she didn't know, and that's when she started digging her own grave, is that I'm the technical director of the region's energy company. The entire electrical grid in the area, from the pole to the transformer, goes through my planning. And there, on her abandoned land, there were 12 active power points, all connected to irrigation sensors, cultivation equipment, security cameras, pumps, and a monitoring network installed to protect the rural property. In other words, a total lie. The HOA created a document, printed an altered map, and sent it to the zoning department as if it were true. What amazed me most was the audacity. They even had signs made saying, "Area temporarily administered by HOA, Aesthetic Community Agriculture Project," as if that were some kind of legal authorization. These signs were placed at 3 points on the fence. Along with them, flyers inviting the residents of the condominium to support the new space for integration with nature. And, of course, she set herself up as the creator of the project, the savior of greenery herself. Behind the scenes, she was partnering with a landscaping group and another of vegan influencers. She planned to turn the land into a showcase for the condominium. A beautiful post, an opening event, a tour of the gardens with an electric trolley, trails with QR codes explaining the fictitious history of the land occupation. One of the promotional videos had already been recorded. She appears walking among my mother's corn stalks, saying that the community, when it unites, transforms abandoned landscapes into productive paradises. I watched it late at night, sitting down, feeling like I was in an episode of rural Black Mirror. I was so angry that the first thing I wanted to do was go over there and knock those signs down with my hand. But I preferred another way, a much more surgical one. After all, she invaded through lies. I was going to learn from the truth, and by the plug. I called the electricity company's legal department. I opened the property's consumption history for the last 12 months. All active. Average consumption compatible with rural activity. Irrigation, shed lights, cameras. Then I sent everything to a well-known lawyer. And of course, I added the icing on the cake. A photo of her tilling the soil with a decorative shovel next to a lamppost, which, guess what, had the logo of the company I manage. The woman literally did a photo shoot of land theft, with proof of the active electricity grid in the frame. She was so dumb, but so convinced, that she gave me golden ammunition, and I didn't even know what was coming. In the second week of the poetic invasion, she called a collective green transformation. The woman organized a welcome event at my mother's farm. It wasn't enough to grab the land, she had to put on a show. She hired a folk cover band, a vegan food truck, and even set up a fence with newly planted sunflowers. All bought, of course, with HOA funds, which she used as her own personal piggy bank. The residents of the condominium showed up in droves. Many didn't even know the land belonged to anyone. They thought it had been donated, or that nobody really used it. She created a narrative so well varnished that it sounded official. She said loud and clear that the area was now an experimental community space and would soon have individual gardens by lottery, shared greenhouses, and even an artisanal apiary. The cherry on top of the absurdity was when one of her employees set up a tent with the town hall logo, a fake, as if all that theater had public approval. The woman had no limits, none whatsoever, but she also had no idea of the web that was already spun around her. While she was handing out organic juice and taking sepia-filtered photos, my lawyer was filing a formal complaint at the Environmental Crimes Police Station based on the images my mother had taken, the farm's legitimate ownership documents, and the energy consumption reports I had signed myself. To top it all off, I asked the company's technical department for a detailed scan of the energy connections on the 2,100 acres. 4 new clandestine connection points appeared. Yes, as well as trespassing, she had pulled illegal wires from the main network. An absurd risk, as well as a crime. That's when I started disconnecting. First, the support pole in the center of the farm, the one where she hung the LED lights for the full moon festival with yoga at sunset. It was switched off at 6:30 p.m., right at the start of the class. According to a neighbor who was there, the class sat in the darkness for 15 minutes, waiting for the mystical light to return. It didn't come back. 2 days later, I turned off the irrigation point she used for her spiral lavender plants. The water stopped. The seedlings wilted. The employees hired to water them started complaining. She tried to call the company and was directed straight to the Irregularities Center, but she still didn't realize it. She was so blinded by ego, so drunk on her sustainable entrepreneur persona, that she thought it was just a technical problem. She told the residents that the energy of transformation goes through instabilities, and that the universe was testing the community's resilience. The universe was, indeed, but with a complaint protocol and a penal code. The following week, I turned everything off, pole by pole, transformer by transformer, cameras off, pumps without power, speakers muted. On the day of the community organic fair, all I had was a dark, silent ground that smelled of failure. The first call came from an unknown number. It was her voice sweet and fake. "Good afternoon. We're having a supply problem here in the project area. Can you help me check if there's been an error in the mesh?" I just said, "You shouldn't be in this area." Silence. A few seconds. She tried to change her tone, almost as if it wasn't her business. "Ah, sure. Maybe there was some confusion. The HOA people filed a community use request, so I guess there was a miscommunication. Can we schedule a meeting to sort it out?" I took a deep breath, let the silence do what it needed to do. Then I added, "There was no failure. There was a crime, and you will answer for it." I hung up. No shouting, no threats, no theatrics. The next morning, the first bailiff showed up at the condominium with a notice, a formal summons. The woman was called to testify at the police station about land grabbing and misuse of public energy. The news leaked out before lunch. Residents who used to country dance with her now crossed the street when they saw her car approaching. The HOA chat, once full of compliments and plant emojis, turned into absolute silence. Some people asked for a refund of their donation to the community project. Others demanded accountability. She tried to justify herself by sending an email in a spiritual tone. Not every change is understood at first. Great transformations pass through energetic noises. The earth belongs to those who take care of it with intention. That's right. Yes, but the land had a name, a document, a registration number, and it wasn't hers. And the worst was yet to come. Because in addition to the missing electricity, what was coming now was the electric company's expert report confirming the illegal connection. And that was going to be expensive, much more expensive than the lights she had hung up. By the end of that week, my mother's property was completely free of the energy she was trying to use illegally. No lamp post, no socket, no portable generator to cope. The field, which had become a backdrop for a photo shoot, was now a failed sketch for a spiritual marketing project. The sunflowers couldn't resist without irrigation. The yoga mats became an ant shelter, and the sign with the HOA logo began to fade in the sun like a badly printed joke. The woman, on the other hand, was still holding her pose. She continued to parade around the condominium with a clipboard under her arm, trying to organize emergency meetings with residents who, until 2 weeks earlier, had knelt in the meditation circles she led. But now, all she had to do was turn the corner and the neighbors would cross the street, or pretend to connect. Her charisma evaporated as quickly as the wires she pulled from the electricity grid. But what was to come would not be solved with social silence. The electricity company's forensic experts had finished their report. Everything was documented. Clandestine connection, manipulation of the energy box, installation of unauthorized branches, and direct use of the public network for private purposes, without notification, without a meter, without payment. 4 crimes. A serious breach of the system. And to make matters worse, all on land where she had no legal right to be. The dossier was sent to the public prosecutor's office, and then the tables were turned. She received a court summons on Tuesday afternoon. I tried to imagine her face reading each item by item, with her full name printed in the header, and the terms she used so much in her Energy of Harmony meetings being replaced by words like fraud, irregular occupation, damage to public property, and rural land grabbing. There was a preliminary hearing. This time she appeared different. No heels, no floral brooch, no neighborhood CEO posture. She wore a loose white shirt, as if she wanted to look casual, and her hair was tied up in the crooked bun of someone who hadn't had time to prepare. She sat next to the lawyer, who, by the way, already seemed exhausted by her excuses, and tried to convey the image of a misunderstood woman. The prosecutor didn't buy it. He showed the videos of the invasion, the photos of her holding a shovel, smiling at the drone, the signs placed on my mother's fence, the group messages talking about the Natural Energy Transition Project, and of course, the screenshots of the email she sent herself, in which she said that electricity consumption would be solved directly with the system, as the technicians are all friends. It was at this point that the judge interrupted. Do you really believe that you can take possession of someone else's land, connect to the public electricity grid without authorization, and still claim not to know the law? She swallowed. She tried a timid, almost childish argument. I thought that, being an unused area, and considering the collective good, the judge didn't even blink. You grabbed private property. You drew illegal power. You cheated residents. And you used the structure of the state as if it were part of your personal wellness program. This is serious. Very serious. It was there that her countenance broke. For the first time, I saw the woman who claimed to transform the world with lavender lose her color. Her hands trembled. Her gaze, once haughty, now scanned the floor as if looking for a hole to hide in. The judge granted the opening of criminal proceedings. What's more, he ordered that any activity organized by her in the name of the HOA be blocked until the final judgment. The community's reaction was immediate. The condominium's social pages removed all mention of the project. The HOA's Instagram became a desert. Its flyers disappeared. Some residents, ashamed, apologized publicly, including to my mother, who watched it all in silence, sitting on her balcony, like someone who sees time mending what justice takes too long to achieve. There was one last moment of morbid glory. Before disappearing from the routine of the neighborhood, the woman still tried to play one last card. She wrote a collective email saying that everything was just persecution, that she was being punished for trying to create something beautiful in a world corroded by bureaucracy. She signed it as Ambassador of the Collective Earth. She didn't have time to send it to everyone. Her server crashed. The internet connection was powered by the same electricity grid she tried to bypass. Ironic, what followed were the real consequences. The town hall opened an investigation into the misuse of logos and false representation in the public name. The condominium held an extraordinary meeting and voted unanimously to definitively exclude her from any future involvement with the community administration. And while all this was going on, my mother's property went back to being what it had always been: living land, with owners, with history. Plantations resumed, equipment reconnected, by me, with a single click. And the fence, which had been torn down by the woman at the start of the project, rebuilt, higher, with very clear signs: private property, restricted access, 24-hour monitoring, not to scare you, but as a reminder that respect can't be planted with lies. After the hearing, the woman who was once called a green visionary by the HOA itself became a forbidden name in the corridors of the condominium. The transformation of her image was as quick as the time it took for her energy to disappear. A snap. From being a symbol of modern rural empathy, she was treated as a cautionary tale for future administrations. It was like an advertisement for a social insecticide. Look what happens when you give power to people who just want to appear. The legal consequences were heavy. The public prosecutor's office concluded its investigation based on the reports, visual evidence, testimonies, and the technical report from the electricity company. The judge accepted the formal complaint, and she was prosecuted for 3 crimes: land grabbing, energy theft, and ideological falsehood. The attempt to use fabricated documents, false stamps, and city hall seals in material promoting the green transformation became proof that she was not only acting with intent, but with premeditation. The sentence didn't put her in jail, but it hurt where it hurts the most: reputation and pockets. A huge fine, obligation to pay the cost of rebuilding the fence, restitution to my mother for the misuse of the property, backdated to the days when she promoted the Community Agricultural Awareness Festival. And as icing on the cake, the judicial demand to publish a formal retraction, both printed and digital, admitting the attempted fraud and publicly acknowledging that the property never belonged, not for a second, to the HOA or any collective structure. The HOA, for its part, rushed to erase the footprints. They created a new board, deleted the old posts, changed the name of the Facebook group, and pretended that nothing had happened. But the internet doesn't forget. The images of sunny days among the lavender trees are still circulating, now with sarcastic captions. Some remorseful residents used their own networks to publicly apologize. One of them said, with a touch of lucidity, "I believed her. The idea of a common space was nice, but it was just makeup on top of the theft. I'll never sign anything again without reading it." The woman disappeared. Literally. She disappeared from the neighborhood. She sold the property at a below-market price, almost silently. The move was made on a gray Monday, without a goodbye. Nobody saw the truck. They only realized she was gone when the plants on the balcony wilted and the gardener stopped coming. They say she tried to start again in a neighboring town. She even presented a project at a local community forum. But all it took was for someone to recognize her face and open the file, and everything fell apart. The proposal was shelved before it became a talking point. Fame went faster than the new brooch she tried to wear on her chest. My mother's farm, on the other hand, flourished. We renovated the shed. We updated the irrigation system, with new sensors, with restricted access, and yes, with legalized and well-paid energy, as it always was. She started planting again with more peace of mind. Her grandchildren started visiting more. The staff, once tense about strangers coming in and out, now work in peace. The land is hers again, with the smell of dignity. One day, we sat on the veranda and she said, looking out over the fields in the distance, "They almost took everything. They just didn't know that there are roots here. And roots, when they get stuck, don't let go easily." And she was right, because what she had built there wasn't just a plantation. It was memory. It was respect. And that, no matter how much you try to fence it off, paint it, turn it into a pamphlet, or post it on Instagram, you can't take it. The woman thought she could grab 2,100 acres with a piece of paper and a nice speech. She didn't count on a fence that had stood for decades. She didn't count on a mother who has never let go of what is hers. And I definitely didn't count on her son running the network that supported the light show of the project she invented. We turned off the lights, and the world saw who she really was. Today, when I pass the entrance to the farm and see the restored sign with my mother's name in carved wood, I remember that justice doesn't always come at the right time. But when it does, it lights up every corner that someone has tried to hide in the darkness of lies. And there are some things that, once lit, never go out. And if you liked this video, don't forget to leave a comment and a like.